So thank you. Thank you so much for joining. And that's great. So come on in. Um, okay, so the truth that sets us free is the title of the chapter of today. The truth that sets us free. And it's chapter 3 of the book. And so we use the book a little bit, and the very last part of it, and only certain parts of it. So there's, I don't know if you read it, but it's helpful to go through it and see how Joel exposes what he wants to say, what he likes to show to you, and so what he's able to teach is also like depending on who is actually listening, just like it's happening right now. So and that's something that is so beautifully orchestrated. You could say like it's so perfect, given to Joel to share with the ones that are there, what he can share. And so if you know what I mean, then it's great. Like if you don't know what I mean, that's fine too. It doesn't really matter. But in fact, it is by your attention, by your how are you listening? It's like, how are you listening in your mind? How are you opening up your consciousness that allows, say, me to share as part of you? Like, in talking in totality here, I can only say that what you allow me to say, you could say. So there's no coincidence in that at all. There's no mistake in it, in other words. There's no mistake in it. And that's really something else, because it takes away for me all the considerations about it. I can freely say that what comes to me, share with you. So I love to do that and continue with doing that. And so today, Joel brings in a very specific part in that what I'm going to show you. It's like a very specific part. He talks about the enlightened. And so the enlightened do not see death. You know, the enlightened do not see death. And he also emphasizes ideas of the idea of two powers. You know, of course, that is always coming back. Like, and but I want to say take that a little bit further in a certain sense, because it's like if he speaks to the enlightened, it's like the truth sets you free. That combined, you could say, is like, are you actually aware that the only thing real about you is your enlightened mind? See, the rest is, what is the rest? It's an idea of opposites, of conflict, of lack, abundance, lack, limitation, all this stuff. It's like you continuously, in fact, you continuously say, recognize that or not. It's the one thing or the other. So that's why I bring that back into this. It is, it is an invitation, in fact, to hear this anew. Now I saw just a chat flashing by. Sometimes I have to look. Maybe something is okay. So yeah, that's for later then. So yeah, that's great music. The music I was playing was from Vater Unser, so it's like Our Father. It's by Arvo Pärt. It's in cello and piano in this time, but it's also being sung. So it's like an Our Father in music. That's why I love this. See, and you see, there's a lot of say it is all it is all really one thing, and that is amazing to see fall into place. So it's what we shared in the meditation, for instance, with Revelations 21. You see, like a revelation. Look at that. It's like a revelation is really like a direct contact with God, and that reveals truth to you, like it literally sets you free because you have an intense experience of the direct communication. This is how John was writing it down. He was writing it down even. Imagine that. While in the middle of the revelation that came to him. So one of the things, of course, that like there will be no mourning and no crying and no sorrow and no all of this, because the former has passed away. The former heaven and earth have passed away. Now this is also part of that. Like, are you actually recognizing that the former earth and heaven have passed away, which easily can be, say, shared in the sense of, are you actually aware that your, say, two power association, like two power ideas that you hold about yourself, are you actually aware that that is over, that that has passed? And are you allowing space for the new heaven and earth in your consciousness, which is your enlightened mind? Well, this is the process that appears to be going on in us. The process in the sense of it's not completely clear as yet that your whole consciousness is what the new heaven and the new earth is. And so as long as you could say, as long as you play with ideas of two powers, of opposite powers, of conflict, of differences, of all of this, as long as you play with those toys, which is really what it is, you still think that that is what you are, and that is what, what is your reality, literally. So that's why this is such a great chapter in chapter 3. It's like the truth sets you free. Now the truth sets you free. You love to experience that, and you love to accept that as an idea. The practice is then, and that's what it holds in itself, the practice is then to let the old heaven and earth, let it go, let that pass by, because it is gone, recognizing it is gone, that you don't have to deal with that in that sense, but letting it go. And that is, say, the practical part of it. So it has always consequences. You hear something, you recognize it, you accept the idea, but then you actually start to implement it in your consciousness as also an activity of recognition. Like, no, I cannot make that real anymore. No, that does not work for me anymore. I cannot do that. No. Say, what is real about me is my, say, direct center of my being aligned with, say, my truth, with the truth that sets me free. And that is all of me. I cannot take any part away from it. It's all of me. It is everything. Say, it's beyond, there's nothing outside of me that can tempt me any longer to doubt that. No matter what I see, no matter what I think even, no matter what I esteem as real for just a second, like it cannot tempt me any longer to let this new earth, say, delay its coming in my consciousness. Okay, so Joel says it in the book this way, and which is, see, here we have this. To the enlightened, there is no death, no separation, no end. New Jerusalem is here. Like we saw this in Revelation. New Jerusalem just came down here and now. It's right here and right now. So to the enlightened, he's talking to you. He's talking to you. There is no death. There is no separation, right? You know this as a concept. Now it is the invitation to let this become your, say, total experience of yourself. Okay, so here Joel says, "Know ye not that there is no death, that this is a transitional experience which must come to all? Do you know that there's no such thing as death? Know ye not that when an individual stops serving and giving and doing that, he has already died, even though he still occupies space on earth? Know ye not that when an individual stops serving and giving and doing that, he has already died, even though he still occupies space on earth, on the former earth? Know ye not that life is loving, and when one ceases to love, to give, to share, and to spend oneself, he has already died, even though he be still visible to us? Know ye not that life is loving, that when one ceases to love, to give, to share, and to spend oneself, he has already died, even though he be still visible to us? Know ye not that when one no longer learns, death has already come, even while he's still walking on earth? And learning in the sense of really learning. If every day does not add knowledge, wisdom, power, the ability to live life, and the capacity to love, we have already died. So that's quite something. So Joel gives us descriptions of death has nothing to do with like what you knew to be death, like a transition from death to life, which is really like an opposite, right? So life is eternal, so how can there be an opposite to life? So in truth, that does not exist. So in truth, you live. So you can no longer say accept that as an part of yourself. The dying is a part of yourself that has nothing to do with you in your recognition of your true being. So that makes it that Joel gives some nice examples. It's like, if you don't know ye not that if you don't do this and this and this, then you're already dead. And you can say like, well, okay, so I'm still loving pretty good, I'm still giving, and I'm still doing this and that. And it's like, oh, okay, great. Well, that that is wonderful. So I'm going to put it a little bit even more, say, on an edge, if you want, and to an edge, and this is like, in fact, if you believe in an aspect of time, that there will be like a better future, like a spiritually better future, like it's going to be given to me at one day, it will be given to me, or say postponing, in fact, or projecting it into the future instead of accepting it right now. It's like that is still then the same thing. It's like then you're waiting for something to happen, while it can only happen now. Like it is now your reality. It is now your truth. It is now that which sets you free. It is the freedom that is given you in this moment. So you see that brings it so close to yourself. It's like, actually, I'm still postponing things. I think that there will be like a revelation coming to me, and suddenly I will be like taken out of this. And like, well, that's yeah, why not now? Why not now? And that seems to be the hardest thing to accept, say, your holiness or your enlightenment, or your totality now. And that has very specific reasons for you too. It's like there must be a reason for you not to accept it right now. Yeah, maybe you think it is some kind of sacrifice to do so, or maybe you don't trust it completely, or maybe this or maybe that. Like there can be all kinds of reasons not to accept it, and so far, yeah, you've been considering all those instead of just being open to receive this. You know, of course, I'm generalizing this in a certain sense, but it's more like you value anything outside that you think in time and that you think is going to add something to you or is going to make you complete, or you hope of a better future that is going to make you complete, then you're actually missing it. And which is the same thing as death, in fact. Like you're not accepting this. You not accepting this is what death is what denial is. So, yeah, that is, say, a little bit more, you could say, black and whitely put or sharply put, but it comes down to the same idea. It's like, it's not anything new. So this actually not necessarily brings you a relief to hear this. And more maybe pressure, like, oh my God, what am I going to do now to get out of this? Like, how am I going to recognize my totality of myself? And you know that you cannot do that. You know that you cannot make your mind do it or something. Like there's no way for you to do that. And see, that is a recognition that is helpful. Like I have no idea how to do this. But that doesn't mean that it cannot happen, you know. So it's like, no, this can definitely come to you. You don't know how to do this, but it's like the lovely thing is that God knows his way to you. He knows how to find you, you know. So that's really beautiful. Now, oh yeah. A belief in two powers is what time is what death is. So now that's not a threat. It is an, say, it's one of the expressions. I believe in two powers is what time is what death is. So as soon as you see yourself trusting the idea of opposites, or say expressing them, or valuing them, or valuing anything that's related to time, in fact, you're, say, putting death as your God. In fact, you are denying your eternal life, you could say. So life is eternal, and there is no such thing as death. So everything related to the idea of death is not real. So your idea about you dying or something is not real either. Like life is eternal. That what you are will live forever. So, and I love this. I love the idea that Joel is sharing and that we just looked at together. I love that. All right, so now the next part in our moment together is listening to Joel. And we are listening to the second part of the tape, and after that we'll come back and see what happens.
Personal source of any and every form of evil. Unless you can do that, in other words, unless you can see a man stealing a pocketbook and then say, thank God I know you aren't the thief. The carnal mind is behind this, or mortal mind, or claim. Unless you can separate that evil from that individual, you haven't a ghost of a show of helium. If you are confronted with a case of cancer and you are tempted to believe that jealousy, hatred, sensuality caused it, you haven't a chance to be a good healer. even if accidentally you do heal someone once in a while. Because none of those things cause cancer. Cancers have been caused in newborn babies, and they haven't had a chance yet to be hateful or sensual or anything else. And there are some mighty fine, pure men and women in the world who have these diseases, who never knew such things as hate or sensuality or jealousy to the extent of causing a cancer. Oh no. Unless you can instantly impersonalize by realizing that this claim has its origin in an impersonal source. Whether you call it carnal mind or mortal mind makes no difference, but don't have it in your patient, don't have it in your student, and above all things, don't have it in yourself. And right here I'm going to tell you why. You might as well know it at the beginning, because I know you're all students of many years standing. The reason is God constitutes your identity. Your name is I. And you know it, you call yourself I. It's the only way you can identify yourself as I. And that I is your identity, but that I is God. And how dare you say that it has evil qualities and propensities? I have no evil qualities or propensities. Paul recognized that when he said, I do not sin. I do feel a sense of sin in me, but it isn't mine. And so it is that you and I may say, there are times we feel sensual. Maybe there are times we even feel envious. But don't start condemning yourself. That is just a universal thing that you've picked up out of the ether, and it has no relationship to you, because the minute you know that I am I and my Father are one, and all that the Father hath is mine, you'll know you have no evil qualities, no evil propensities, no evil characteristics, and that any that are within you, they are but the projection of that which we will call carnal mind or mortal mind or Satan, meaning impersonal source of evil. Now, when you have done this, you have got your patient about half cured. As long as you lift the burden of guilt from them, you have them just about half cured, and you can complete it with the next step. Although for Christians, the next step is going to be a bitter pill to swallow. In the next step, you'll have to agree that St. Paul made a terrible mistake. That St. Paul made a mistake that has helped to keep us in bondage. St. Paul made a mistake that has been fatal to the world. He said, the carnal mind is enmity against God, and don't you believe it. His saying that caused him to be put in prison almost every week, beaten up almost every week, finally thrown into prison until he was dead. He came upon the most horrible experiences of any religious teacher that ever lived. No one ever suffered what Paul did. Jesus may have suffered more in 5 minutes, but Paul suffered it for years because of his own mistaken conclusion that the carnal mind, now remember, he impersonalized, all right. He didn't blame anyone for his troubles. He didn't say it was the Romans or the Greeks or the Jews. He knew it was the carnal mind, but he didn't know that the carnal mind is not enmity against God. The carnal mind is the arm of flesh or nothingness. The carnal mind is a belief in two powers. Anywhere that the belief in two powers exists, you have a carnal mind. And to whatever extent that you and I still believe in two powers, and remember that every one of us believes in it to some extent. Some of us have come further out of it than others, but there isn't anyone on earth that is living now, in fact none that we know that has ever lived, that came completely out of good and evil until after the resurrection. But each one of us on the metaphysical path has already come out to some extent. I mean, for instance, there's probably no one in this room who could be called to a case of infectious or contagious disease that wouldn't go out and answer it immediately without any fear that they would take on the contagion or infection. Why? Because everyone on this path has already gone far enough to know that since God is the only power, this infection or contagion is nothing but a belief of power, and therefore we don't concern ourselves with it. And so when we go to those cases, we don't bathe in alcohol and put masks on. We just walk in as we are and walk out as we are, and no one ever comes away with any disease. But the chances are that if we were to hear this afternoon that there would probably be an atomic bomb dropped on us tonight, probably we wouldn't quite have that same unconcern and say, well, what of it? If God is the only power, I can't see what difference it makes if they drop bombs all around us. Now, actually, however, that should be the attitude of every individual on the spiritual path. Where I am, God is, or as the Hebrew prophet Hezekiah said, when told that the enemy is coming against us and there are more of them than of us. And Hezekiah said, they have only the arm of flesh, temporal power. We have the Lord God Almighty. In other words, we have all might and they have none. Their numbers do not constitute power. Their guns do not constitute power, because God is all power. Therefore, numbers and guns are no power. So it is that every individual who knew this in the wartime, and it made no difference what side they were on, if only they knew that God is all power, they could walk right out on the battlefront and nothing could by any manner of means come nigh their dwelling place. Because if you believe that an atomic bomb has power, which you know the world does believe, then you are in the midst of the only error there is in life, the belief in two powers. Many people still cling to that superstitious mythology that's taught about Adam and Eve having been thrown out of the Garden of Eden because of sex. Well, I suppose if you want to keep people behaving, it's a good whip to hold over their head. But of course it never was true. There wasn't a word of truth in it. The Bible clearly states why they were thrown out of the Garden of Eden. They ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And that's all there is to you and to me as humans. To the degree that we accept the belief of two powers, good and evil, in that degree are we the victims, not of two powers, because there aren't two powers, but we are the victims of the belief of two powers. And remember this, don't personalize it. It isn't your belief. It's a universal belief which you are momentarily accepting. Now then, if you will remember that the origin of evil is the belief in two powers, you will have the basic secret of life, that which the ancients sought, and that which some of them discovered and found they could not teach to mankind. The origin of evil is the universal belief in two powers. And the moment a child is conceived, they are under that law. And the only way that it can be avoided is if their parents, before conception, have become aware of the fact that man is not a creator, neither the mind of man nor the body of man. God alone is creator, and God is the one and only power, and all creation is subject unto God, and only unto God. Then they will bring forth a child free right from birth of this belief in two powers, and they will function as a child of God. In other words, they will not be under the dominion of the belief about babies and the belief about child sicknesses and so forth and so forth and so on. I do not know what your record is, those of you who are in unity, for I've never heard. But I have investigated the record in Christian Science, and I can tell you that children from Christian Science homes average only 20% of the absences from school for sickness of the other children. Only 20% taking a broad tabulation from coast to coast. In other words, whatever degree the Christian Science home knows that a child doesn't live under law but under grace, brings them at least that much freedom. Now to go the next step and to really understand the origin of evil and to know that it only exists as a belief in two powers, a universal belief, never your belief, never his belief, never its belief, just a belief, and then to take the next step and realize this belief in two powers, which we call the carnal mind or mortal mind, is not a power, is not a cause, it is the arm of flesh or nothingness. It is a belief. It is an illusion. It is an appearance, but it has no reality and it has no law, and let me tell you why. It isn't God ordained. God never created two powers, and God never created a belief in two powers. Therefore, there is no God ordination in that belief. There is no God power in that belief. There is no power of sustenance or maintenance to that belief. And all that is required is for an individual to know the truth. And to know the truth is what God did not create was not made, was not empowered. And therefore, the belief in good and evil was not God made, is not God ordained, is not God sustained, and has no law of God to perpetuate it. Therefore, the first step in our healing work is impersonalizing the evil, removing it from the person, never being guilty of saying he, she, or it, always removing it out into the universal carnal mind, then taking the second step and declaring this is not enmity against God, this is a belief without God, without law, without presence, without power, and you will find that you've accomplished 75 to 80% of your healing work. Actually, you will find this. Healing work should be accomplished quickly and completely in at least 75 to 80% of all our cases. In other words, every day we should be able to clean up at least 75% of the cases that come to us. They are so simple. In other words, they don't have their foundation in the patient at all. They don't have their foundation in anything that the patient is responsible for, and by recognizing the universal, impersonal nature of them and the impotency of it, you remove it. I'll illustrate that this way. Let us take the flu epidemic. Nobody's responsible for having flu. You can't blame a person or look for the qualities that brought them flu. It's just something flying around in the atmosphere and they pick it up. Therefore, when one individual recognizes that this epidemic is a universal belief, not personal to anybody, and that it has no law of God sustaining it, you've stopped it. And you may have experiences such as I have had, where every case that came to my office in a whole day was met on the day it came in, without ever thinking about a patient or being concerned who called in or when, just keeping thought out here on the idea that this is nothing but a universal claim of a selfhood apart from God, or of a law apart from God, or an activity apart from God. And because it isn't personal, and because it isn't power, it is this arm of flesh or nothingness, that takes care of it. In the same way, easily 75 or 80% of all the claims that afflict individuals are very quickly met through this method of treatment. Where you get into your difficulty is with the other 20%. And that is where a practitioner really has to earn their fees, if they have any, or their gifts or love offerings or whatever it is that they have. They're going to earn them with that 20%. Why? That is the portion that the Master says, this kind goeth not out but by prayer and fasting. And that's where the individual practitioner has to rise high in consciousness to meet those cases. And if my own experience is any criterion, you don't meet all of them. But you can meet a great amount of them. You can come to where you can say, I'm meeting 90 to 95% of all the cases that come to me. And the rest, I've still got to go higher before I can attain the consciousness that will meet them. Now, this discovery led to all that has taken place in my 30 years of experience that brought this work around the world. But it was only a step. It was what you might call the curative step, but not the preventative. That came later, when it was revealed to me that we individually can escape 90 or more % of all the evils that beset the world. We can live a life completely free of lack and limitation, no matter to what extent lack and limitation might hit the world. We can live in health regardless of what extent disease hits the world. We actually can demonstrate that none of these things will come nigh my dwelling place, but we have to do it through the understanding and application of certain principles. In our work, we call this protective work. Not meaning protective work that we protect ourselves from any people or races or religions, or that we protect ourselves from any sins or diseases, far be it from such. Our protective work is the protection against our acceptance of these universal beliefs. Now, since naturally I cannot in a short time go through all of these principles with you, I will tell you where they may be found in my writings, so that you can work specifically, those of you who would like to, with these principles and see if they fit into your particular way of life. The subject of protective work is found in a chapter named Protective Work in the book Infinite Way Letters, 1955. And again in a letter which will appear June 1960. Those are the two papers on protective work. In this protective work, the idea is that an individual waking in the morning is really waking up into this world, the world of laws, laws of matter, laws of mind, laws of two powers, and that he or she must consciously remove themselves from this world of two powers, come out and be separate, and place yourself under grace. Now, there is no power outside of you going to do that for you. That is why life goes on eternally, showing these principles to us, these problems, because we do not remove ourselves. And to be free of the world, we must consciously remove ourselves from under the law and place ourselves under grace. And that must be done every single day of the week. I do not know anyone who has grown old enough or advanced enough to omit the daily conscious realization that since I am not under the law but under grace. That since I am I, there are no laws external to me acting upon me, for I am the law and I am the dominion unto this world. This is truth, but if you don't consciously make it so in your experience, you cannot demonstrate it. In handling problems of human relationships, whether they're marital, filial, neighborly, whether they're community, national, international, there are two chapters. Love thy neighbor in practicing the presence, and the relationship of oneness in the art of spiritual healing. Now, to you, of course, most of you, this is not known, that we have had tremendous success in working with corporations and unions. Wherever we have been called in, there are no more strikes, and there is no more strife. We have solved the problem of capital and labor relationships, not on the scale of eliminating all the troubles in the world on them, only eliminating them from those unions or corporations where there is someone willing to work and live by these principles, and we really have done a marvelous job with some big corporations in ending their strikes and preventing any further ones. There is no avenue of human relationships where this principle cannot be applied, where it cannot be solved. It has even been solved in the case of epidemics that have hit public schools. And this work has been called in and stopped the epidemic in 24 hours. Now, it means working with specific principles. Now, the principles of healing work, treatment work, are to be found in the May and June 1960 letters, the newest letters. They are also to be found in June, September, October, November 1959, but that book won't be available until October. There are no more copies of the original letters available, and unless you can borrow copies from those who have them, the only way to get them will be when the Infinite Way Letters 1959 are released, which will be about October. But meanwhile, you will at least have May and June 1960. Then, of course, the book, The Art of Spiritual Healing, contains the foundation for all of our treatment and healing work. The books Practicing the Presence and The Art of Meditation are exactly what their titles indicate. They are merely foundational works for bringing individuals who have not yet come into the life of practicing the presence of God, or who have not attained perfection or ability in meditation. They are the helps for them. They are just foundational books. But after those books, and after the Infinite Way letters, and of course these books, Infinite Way Letters, contain these principles that I have been teaching our practitioners and serious students, because our letters go only to our serious students. No one receives our monthly letter unless they personally request them, and then they are discontinued at the end of the year unless they are again personally requested. And every year, those who receive them must specifically request them. Why? They are the highest unfoldment of which I have been capable of receiving, and I don't want them lying around the world where those who do not know or appreciate will be concerned with them. I never withhold anything from my monthly letters that I know and that will help a serious student, and therefore I know that somebody may want them this year, but by next year discover that this isn't their path. And therefore I don't want them to have them unless they want them. And if so, they'll have to ask for them. And I even know that students have been on the path 5 years and decided that they found something easier or better or simpler. And so it is that these letters have been in circulation since 1954, and those who receive them must specifically request them every January. Then they are continued. Now, those who wish to be with these principles could start with the Infinite Way Letters 1954 and then bring themselves up to 1959 and 60 as slowly or as rapidly as they wish to go through those books. The book, The Infinite Way, is our major textbook, and I have very little hope that there will be many people grasp the book without a background that will enable them to find what is in it, because that book is a book of principles. There isn't, I don't believe, an extraneous word or sentence in it. There's nothing in it but principles, and sometimes one sentence or one paragraph is enough to live with for a long time to come. And therefore, it is our deepest book as used as a textbook. The rest of the books are class books, and they contain all of these principles as they have been given in different classes, because as you have seen, all of my work is recorded and eventually gets into print. And these things appear in print as letters, as books, as magazine articles. There is a magazine in the United States that publishes an Infinite Way article in every issue. There is a magazine in England, there is a magazine in Australia, and a magazine in India. And with every publication there is an Infinite Way article, and right now we have a complete Infinite Way magazine, but it's published only in German and is available only in German, but it is made up of principally the letters and the articles that have already appeared in print.